Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Reiki Lifestyle Podcast. Robyn here, and as always, I'm here with Colleen.
Hello, everyone.
And we are so excited to have back today Nicole Rutsch.
Hello, everybody.
We've had Nicole on before, but it's been a couple of years now. And so we're just excited to hear all about what she's doing in her practice. She's had some exciting things going on. And we were talking before we started the recording, and I think we can talk about a lot of different things. So we're like, let's just start the recording. So we're very excited to have you here, Nicole.
I'm so grateful and so excited to dive into this beautiful conversation and just chit chat about all the things right. And I'm excited.
Exactly. So just a few announcements for us. Let's see, this is going to be released in August. So we will have our we'll have our Animal Reiki 1 and 2 and our Animal Reiki Master that will be coming up. You can find everything at reikilifestyle.com. We will have more classes coming up in the fall too. Again, to check out our class schedule, everything that we're doing, go to reikilifestyle.com, our social media on there, Reiki Lifestyle Official, or YouTube is Reiki Lifestyle. And then my social media is Robyn Benelli Reiki. So you can go onto the social platforms and find us there. Colleen, did you want to talk quickly about the 7-day in Hawaii with William?
Oh, yes. So William Rand and I are teaching a 7-day course, Karuna Reiki Master Course in Hana, Hawaii in November. You can go to reiki.org to find out information about that class. It's an extraordinary class. We were teaching it before the pandemic, and then, of course, haven't been teaching it the past couple of years, and we're back to it. It's a wonderful combination of Reiki training and just hiking around Hana in Hawaii, which is the rural area of Maui. And lots of fun, just beauty, peace, enjoyment.
And immersed in Reiki energy.
Yeah.
Awesome. So again, you can find that at reiki.org, and then anything with us at Reiki Lifestyle. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to Nicole. So Nicole Rutsch, and that is spelled RUTSCH. You can find her at NicoleRutsch.com. Email is hello@NicoleRutsch.com. Insta is Nicole. Is that _ Rutsch, Nicole?
Yeah. _
Rutsch that's her Instagram. And then she's also doing an Alo Yoga Reiki series. And I'm going to have you talk more about that. And all of this is going to be in the show notes. The link to all of it is going to be in the show notes. And you can find the link to the Alo Yoga series in the show notes as well. So Nicole Rutsch is a New York City-based wellness professional specializing in holy fire, Karuna Reiki, sound healing, and herbalism. After starting her career as a photo assistant and food stylist, Nicole started a successful catering business in 2014, serving high-profile clients from the fashion and wellness industries. Her exposure to the wellness industry sparked her interest in natural food and herbs' healing powers, leading her to study herbalism and traditional Chinese medicine at the New York Open Center. Growing up in Germany, Nicole had developed a deep connection to nature, which influenced her path towards wellness and healing. She guides individuals who wish to improve their lives, alleviate stress, anxiety, and gain clarity on life goals. Recognizing the importance of holistic healing, and that's holistic with a W in front of it, and also without a W. Nicole also trained in Reiki for emotional and physical well-being, and later became a Reiki master, and also with Animal Reiki as well. She also used crystal alchemy sound bowls for sound healing, and her unique blend of Reiki, sound healing, herbal remedies, and a healthy lifestyle offers her clients a multifaceted approach to wellness and self-improvement. Nicole recently collaborated with Alo Yoga to create a meditation series centered around Reiki, marking the first ever initiative of this nature on Alo Moves, their membership platform. Her teachings aim to foster personal growth, inner peace, and self-discovery, sharing her wisdom and expertise in the spirit of harmony and unity. So, and I know that your bio has even more in-depth who you've trained with in herbalism and who you worked for in the fashion industry, but I wanted to hear your story from you. So welcome, and love to hear how this all led to you becoming who you are today.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Thank you for, first of all, for having me. And yeah, I grew up in Germany at a farm. So I was always very attuned to nature, right? And decided after high school to come to the US and to learn English, which I clearly did well at. And so, yeah, I just came with the intention to leave after a year. However, I was just like so mesmerized by the country. I was in New York, obviously coming from a small town in Germany, and going to New York was like, insane. And I just like loved the energy. I loved it so much that I decided to go to college here. So I studied at FIT, advertising and marketing, and I also have a background in arts. And yeah, that led me, as you shared, working for a photographer. And throughout that journey, I started a jam business, which were my grandma's recipes, and I infused them with herbs. And that was even before I was really connected to herbalism, and I studied herbalism, but for some reason I was always very intuitive. So I was like, oh, how amazing would it be if we created like small batch jams that you can pair with cheeses, and the herbs will really elevate sort of like the taste and the taste buds of, like, let's say strawberries, right? So experimented with that, got started on Etsy when Etsy wasn't really what Etsy is now, and had great success. I was featured in a lot of like magazines and cheese shops in New York. And that sort of then led to me starting my catering business. And as I was moving into the fashion industry, it was an interesting world for me, right? So here I am, catering really for all the big brands that you can imagine, from 150 to 350 people. I was not a trained chef. I had no experience whatsoever. However, I always had a great eye. Like my visual, like displays and presentation was always like on point. And all I wanted to do really is like feed people, mainly the models, healthy food, right? Because I don't know, I just believed in like farm to table foods. And that was when farm to table and going for the farmer's market wasn't such a thing yet. So that was really the vision. I just wanted them to feel nourished and really energized, with the food that they were putting into their body, because what we put into our body is obviously, so important. So I did that. And after 6 years, I really experienced a lot of burnout and anxiety and stress from just the industry, and just like, day-to-day challenges of running a business, being a small entrepreneur, not having really a team, because the work that I was doing was very seasonal. So it was always in the fall and the spring. So it led me to a lot of stress and anxiety, let's put it this way. And I didn't really know how to balance my body and to just bring my nervous system to a place where, I was okay. So that led me to go to a sound bath and to also receive some Reiki in the sound bath. And for some reason, I was like, what is this? My mind was all of a sudden able to be quiet, and I was able to go deeper within myself. It was fascinating, right? But also, like, before that, I did receive Reiki through a friend of mine in 2014. And that was when my grandpa passed away. And she introduced me to it. I visited her in LA. because in New York, it wasn't such a thing. Like this, the spiritual community wasn't as prominent as it is now, or maybe I wasn't really seeking it out, but there weren't really that many Reiki practitioners. Obviously in LA, it's a little bit more of that vibe and that place where, spirituality is kind of like more of a thing. So she introduced me actually to Reiki. She's like, oh, I got like, there's this thing, I think you should like, sit down, you I should give you a session. I was like, okay. And I was able to connect actually to my grandpa during that time. And it was so beautiful because he all of a sudden passed away. I was in New York, and obviously he's in Germany. And I always felt like he wanted to share something with me, but I never was able to hear him. Right. And sort of for me to connect with him in the spiritual world and to just seek the answers to what he, what I wanted to know from him was so beautiful. And I was able to really connect to him in that sense. So that was like my first experience actually with Reiki. But as I moved through life, I kind of like forgot about it, right? Until I was in this place where I was very anxious and stressed and didn't really know what I was doing and felt lost in many ways. So here I am in the sound bath. And I was able to really quiet my mind. And I was like, this is the most amazing thing ever. And I need to just like pause and really look at my life in a way where it's working for me and not where I'm working for somebody else or where I'm just burning myself out, right? Even though I was working for myself and I was self-employed, I sort of like lost the beauty in it and like the fun in it, like running my own business, because I was so stressed out around finances and just like the day-to-day of the business. So I just like took a hiatus and just sat with myself. I was like, I'm taking 3 months to myself. I'm going to connect to the moon. I'm going to learn how to pull tarot cards, and I'm going to learn Reiki for some reason. That was like my thing. And sound came into play as well, but I just was listening to frequencies and to sound meditations on YouTube. So sound came a little bit later into my vortex. But and then I was like seeking out Reiki practitioners. But again, in New York, there weren't any Reiki practitioners. What was I going to do? So throughout my food journey and being in the food industry, I came across an old mentor of mine who was, I think she was in Miami, and she's like, I'm certified in Reiki 1 and 2. I'm happy to give you or train you in Reiki level 1. And I was like, okay, that's amazing. And that was even before, it was before the pandemic. So obviously we know this, the energy shifted, and we were able now through the upgrades through the pandemic to teach people Reiki virtually, right? So I actually was taught virtual before we actually got the upgrades. So, and I received it well. And I was like, a good student. And I was like, I'm going to meditate with myself. I'm going to give Reiki to myself. And little by little, I got to really see what I now know was my authentic self, right? Like I really was like connected. I was more connected to my body. I really felt my passion come back to certain things. So, and I really like sat with it for like a year to really integrate the energy of Reiki level 1, which obviously is giving Reiki to yourself, right? And throughout that journey, life started to become lighter again and more fruitful and more fun. And just like things started to align again with the vision that I had, right? And then I felt called to do my Reiki 2 training, which I did as well with that same mentor. And it was also virtual. And yeah, it was just like amazing, like how connected I was to it. And I just felt really like so myself. And during that time also was interesting that a lot of relationships fell away that weren't aligned anymore in my life. And like the toxicity was really pulled out, not physically from my body, but also like in my environment, right? Because I aligned myself with like low vibrational energies, right? Like when we look at frequencies and whatnot. And it's kind of interesting how everything just like made cleared away and made space for my vision to really come to fruition. And that's sort of like how I started working with the energy of Reiki and really embodying it and making it my lifestyle to create the life that I envisioned, that I saw, where I saw my higher self going. And that's when sort of the sound part also came into play. Because I know through my own journey, I couldn't just sit in a Reiki meditation or just in a regular meditation. I needed the sound vibrations to really entrain, right, with my brain waves to get me into that state of relaxation and calmness. Like we call it the theta or the delta brainwave state. And I really needed that to sort of like guide me to then connect deeper to myself. So that was kind of like my journey, how I discovered Reiki and sound healing, and also working with the moon and working with the angels and all of that, to just come back to myself and really to create a life that's how I envisioned it, basically. Because I think everything else it worked out. It was great, but it wasn't really in alignment with who I really was at the core and in my heart. Yeah. And then from there, I started building a beautiful Reiki practice and a beautiful business. I worked at a wellness center in New York City for 2 years, and I, saw regular clients. I started offering sound baths in the space as well. And this was like in 2018, so long time ago. And there weren't that many people who were doing sound or Reiki, right? It's sort of like it's starting to be a little bit more popular now. And then the pandemic happened, and then the wellness space closed down, and I'm like, okay, what are we doing now? But I really saw that people finally, the veil was lifted, and they're like, oh, I can actually take care of myself now. So I started offering virtual Reiki circles and sound healing circles. I started offering them as an exchange, because I really felt called to introduce people to this energy and to allow them to come back to themselves and bring balance back and like clear out that anxiety and the stress that we all experienced. And also throughout the pandemic, there was so much fear, right? And like we didn't know what was going on. So I think the number one key to understanding healing and the body is you need to give your body the right environment to function. And if you in a stress-induced environment, you attract more negative frequencies or energies. So I just wanted to make sure our energy kept vibrating on a higher level, so we all as a collective were not scared or tapped into that scarcity or that lack mentality and that mindset. So that was really my vision, just bringing the energy and bringing the healing to the collective. And I created a beautiful practice from that. It was well received and people really needed it. And I started offering obviously virtual Reiki sessions, sound healing sessions, and and now we're back in person, right? So and I'll go into some more details in a little bit, but that's sort of like how I got started, and then moved to LA for 2 years. Which was, again, another beautiful journey, because here I was in LA, offering this kind of work in person now, right? I moved from New York to LA, and we were just coming out of the pandemic. And here we are in LA, offering sound baths and Reiki meditations at all the studios that were out there. And people really crave it. I can see that the collective is really needing now the in-person, but also the resistance is gone in terms of receiving it also virtually. So it's a nice kind of balance to like, hey, let's bring this energy into our daily practice, into our daily life, either if you want to come in to enjoy a meditation in person, or if you want to do it virtual. I think it's great that we have that those both options now, to really connect to ourselves and to bring balance back into our lives.
I have a question that
Yeah.
is completely unrelated. It's related to your story. What was one of your, and then we'll get into the questions that people
Yeah.
actually want to know about. But what was your best-selling jam? I have to, because you said you
Oh my
combined
God.
with
Yes.
herbs. What, or maybe your
Yes.
favorite. So it was like strawberry rosemary, or like, what was it?
I had two. So I had a strawberry habanero with basil. And then I had a strawberry rhubarb with rosemary.
Oh, delicious.
Those
I have
two
a
favorites.
love of like food, food and that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. Not everybody knows that
Yeah.
about me, but so I was like, ooh, what neat
Right.
combination did you have there? So
No, I mean, food was sort of like my first way connecting people to healing. Like my vision, even with my catering business, was always like healing through food, right? However, I've noticed that I didn't have a big enough audience to do that, right? So I needed to come back to see what was more in alignment with me, because being in the food industry and just like the day-to-day of the industry, it's really hard to when you do it on a commercial level, to just really sustain that farm to table lifestyle using the best ingredients as possible, especially when it is in terms of catering, because you have to feed 350 people, and it's just not there,
yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah,
And I have to.
totally understandable, especially in markets like New York and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's a different level there than
Yeah. But,
so,
it really helped me realizing how everything is connected. And later on doing my herbalism training, and that's why I always say we heal the body as a whole, right? Like, and that's why it's holistic. It's not just one thing. It's not just meditation. It's Reiki, right? It's also, what are we putting in? What is our environment? Who's your spiritual team? Who are your doctors? Like, we all need to work together to just really create that environment that works best for us. And it was great. I'm really grateful that I experienced it, and that actually my grandparents taught me a lot about herbs and food subconsciously that I didn't know, but now I can see where it was coming from and how deeply rooted it is, from my upbringing.
yeah, just knowing
Yeah.
that connection, I would agree, because I
Yeah.
grew up on a farm as well. And even
Yeah.
though I wouldn't say like, Colleen and my dad are farmers in the way that it kind of sounded like your grandparents are, there's
Mhm.
just that level of awareness of where, we had apple trees and cherry trees
Yeah.
and, growing up around that whole environment. But I
Yeah.
also wanted to say, because you said one of the things that you have is a very natural, design, visual eye, and then also being trained in it. Follow your Instagram and totally agree with that. I love all of the, your photography and the visuals that you create, as well as obviously everything else. But it's,
Thank you.
I always love all of that aspect of your work, in addition to all of your work too. So go follow our Instagram.
It's all.
Well, and I was really curious about the term food stylist.
Oh,
So I
yes.
think I know what that means, but can
Yes.
you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. So as I was like, obviously I come from a very creative background. Like my grandpa was a carpenter. So I always was like caught in between both worlds, the creative world and also the structural and the business world. So as I was working for a photographer, I always wanted to be a photographer, and I also studied art in addition to advertising and marketing. But for some reason, I just felt like if you have the talent as an artist, it doesn't go away. However, if you don't know how to market your work, then you cannot it's not beneficial for you. So I have the visuals and the eye is so important to me. And as I was doing my catering business, everything always for me needed to be beautifully displayed, right? And I always took great pictures of my foods, and I loved cooking. So I started taking pictures of what I was creating, right? So I like to call it like visual storytelling with food, right? So, I started just like taking pictures on Instagram of my food, and it kind of like blew up. And then I ended up working for just like other photographers who were shooting cookbooks or whatnot. And I was basically preparing the food and curating it and making sure it looks presentable and pleasing to the eye when we were photographing it for like cookbooks or magazines or whatnot. So that's kind of like what I did. But I always made sure it was real food. So usually traditional food stylists, right, when they create their creations, it's actually not real food. It's like, I don't know. I don't even want to mention what it is because you would not look at it and eat it ever again. But like ice cream, for example, is not actually ice cream. It's like glue or something that they mold together. So when it's being shot, because it needs to hold, right? Because ice cream melts quickly, so it's not real. But I always love to use the real ingredients and to just make it look a little bit more rustic and, natural, I guess.
Love that.
Yeah.
Well, I love that. And I've always been fascinated because I am so creative and artistic in so many areas except food presentation.
Interesting.
Isn't it? I know.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that if I really spent a lot of time on it, I could get good at it.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm such a peasant food cook. So if I can say that. I was explaining it to my sister-in-law who's a very gourmet cook. I was like, well, I kind of just chop up big chunks and put it in a pot with water and make food. So I don't know. Way off topic.
But. Yeah, it's funny. But I had to know. Yeah, we both had to know. That's really funny.
Well, it's funny if you want to go on a journey and scroll down all the way to my Instagram page, like my first, you see the journey from food, moving into wellness, moving to catering, moving into the spiritual world.
So, that's so neat though, because that is like one person's journey. I guess that's what our social medias are, right? They capture us and, if we're authentically presenting ourselves, and they capture us and our journeys and our growth and our change.
Exactly. Yeah, it's all there.
Well, it's just fascinating to hear not only your journey, but the different things that we don't know about. So things like food stylist, it makes sense when you say it.
Right. Yeah.
I have never thought about it.
Yeah.
So now you're in sound healing. You're specializing in sound healing. So you mentioned that. I'd like to hear a little bit about your journey with that. And also you said that are you doing sound healing on Alo Yoga? Or are you doing Reiki on Alo Yoga? Are you doing both?
Yeah. So I'll explain. I'll do both. So, so as I was so I mainly specialize in, I would say my sound healing sessions are very unique because I infuse the Reiki energy into them, which is not really common, I should say. And I know from my students and people who have taken my classes, there is a really distinct difference versus a regular sound bath versus one that's infused with Reiki energy. And like I said, I feel like it's just very unique to me because that's been my journey, right? And I am my greatest teacher in a sense, and I like to share my gifts with what has worked for me. So and the vision with Alo Yoga and specifically with Alo Moves, obviously was channeled in a meditation that I did with myself, a Reiki meditation. And I just felt like my big vision that I have is really making Reiki more accessible and more tangible, right? Because most people that I at least come in contact with, specifically, let's say in the fashion industry or whatever industry, and no one has heard of Reiki, right? Unless you really are in the spiritual community and in the world. And I'm like, okay, let me explain it to you. You can think of it as an energetic massage, right? Like you go and get a physical massage, but you never really clear your energy or massage your energy out of your body. So that's where I basically come in hand and I clear you, right? And I really had this vision of like, how can me specifically and us all of us Reiki practitioners and Reiki masters, how can we benefit from this? This wasn't actually about me. I was like, this needs to be known for everyone so everyone can receive this healing, right? Because we know this modality is so powerful and we all need it, like especially right now in this day and age and in this world, right? So I started working with Alo, doing sound meditations at their studios, specifically in LA. And I had this vision come to me of like, we need to create a Reiki healing series where people can receive this energy through meditation at, easily accessible on an app. But, because we're all busy, we don't have time, right? The meditations need to be anywhere between 5 and 10 minutes short. And then the evening ones will be like a sound bath where they can really like fall asleep to it, but still receive the energy of Reiki. So that was my vision. And I pitched it and I was like, let's do this. And it was well received. And we just like created it. So I kind of like channeled all the meditations and I said, let's start out with like a 7-day energy reset, a 7-day energy healing series. So it's 7 days of receiving Reiki healing energy. You have morning meditations and evening meditations. So the morning ones are mainly Reiki focused. They all Reiki focused. And the evening ones are sound baths that are infused with Reiki healing energy. So they kind of like work on top of each other, work with each other, but you can also listen to them individually. Mm-hmm. So one is like productivity, clearing out your body, getting better sleep, for example, really like allowing you to move through these 7 days. So you have a full on energy reset. And then you can like, move through your day-to-day feeling so much more balanced, so much more clearer, more connected with yourself. Obviously, we all know the beautiful benefits that Reiki and sound, gives us. So, and it's doing so well. It's one of the top 10 performers on the platform. So, really, really excited that everyone is now able to meditate with me and also to receive this energy.
Oh, yeah. Congratulations. That's fantastic. And also just wonderful, like you said, that you're able to just expose more people to Reiki and love your description of it, of the energetic massage. It's clearly deep.
Yeah.
Deep stuff.
Right. So I'm curious though, for those of us, so is Alo Yoga a platform, and what's the structure? Like, how do people find what you're just describing?
Yeah. So Alo Yoga is, it's a yoga brand, right? And they basically do clothing, but they have also evolved over the years. They have wellness products now. They obviously have yoga mats, but they also have they have a platform called Alo Moves, where they have yoga instructors, fitness instructors, mindfulness teachers. So I'm one of the mindful teachers, and we try to just like basically bring wellness to the mass. So everyone can sort of like meditate with us, or, wants to work out with one of the yoga teachers, or wants to do, I don't know, a bar or a boxing class. So they have really anything and everything. And it's an app, and you can access it either on your phone or, on your computer. And you would just like type in my name in the search bar, and then I pop up.
Okay. I and actually even reading the information about you, I didn't really quite grasp that that's how it works. Yeah. So that's Alo Yoga.
Yes.
And that's an app. So people would find it by going into the app store. And
so if you
those of us a little less tech savvy. So we go into
if you type in Alo Moves. So
Alo
Moves is the actual app. Yeah. And Alo Yoga is the brand. Yeah. So if you type in Alo Moves, and then you can download the app. And then, yeah, you will find, like I said, I've created like a series, and then I also have created just classes. So just, for Mental Health Awareness Month, we have created 5 classes. Like one of them is like to disconnect from technology. So it's like a little bit shorter, like 5 to 10 minutes meditations, or, where you can just like listen to it if you, let's say, you're very triggered, right? And I have a meditation for like moving through negative emotions, right? And you have like a really hard day and you're just like talking yourself down and you feel really down on yourself. So you can just like go on, listen to it for like 10 minutes, and then you feel hopefully, and I know, rejuvenated after, and you feel, a little bit more connected to yourself. So my vision was really making it easily accessible for everybody and still receiving the healing benefits from Reiki and from sound. But it's mainly focused, my main focus on the platform is Reiki. And then the sound comes into play, as I said, usually when we're doing like the longer meditations.
So interesting. And all these different ways that, we can reach our communities as well.
Exactly. And, I feel like, for me, like, I know sometimes, our lives are so busy. How can we make it, how can we still benefit from it, but having it like at the tip of our phone? You know what I mean? Like, I just want to be able to access it. I don't want to type in something in YouTube. I want to have a trusted practitioner or a trusted teacher who I know I can feel safe with, and I can just like, move me through my day-to-day or move me through my challenges, right? And even in sort of like my intro to the community, I always say journal, right? Like journaling is really big. Like, see what's coming up for you, right? We do that even in a longer Reiki meditation, but see what's coming up for you, see what the subconscious is kind of like bringing out. And then from there, you can listen to the same meditation again because you will have a different experience, right? So obviously I love Reiki and sound, and it's such an amazing modality to work with. And it has helped me through so much. Yeah.
So you talked, we know that you are also a sound healer. Let's get in a little bit about that. You had talked about the theta and delta waves. Can you explain that and why it helped you and how it helps, and explain it in general for those that may not know?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. For those of you who are maybe new to sound healing, obviously, so I specifically work with crystal alchemy bowls, right? So there's also frosted bowls, which are the white ones, and I work with the colorful ones. That's kind of like how to explain it. And obviously sound is a very powerful way for us to harmonize our bodies, since we are made out of 70% water, right? And sound travels 4 times better through water versus any other, instrument. So the bowls specifically, they're actually, here, I'm going to show you one. So they're clear quartz crystals, right? And they're infused basically with precious metals, earth elements, gemstones, and they carry healing frequency. So this one is actually a kyanite crystal that's infused in the bowl. And kyanite is obviously a natural pain reliever. So that's one of the bowls. And then this beautiful one, which is one of my favorites, is actually a morganite platinum. So morganite obviously connects us to our heart space, right? And platinum is very clearing. So the bowls, as I said, they're infused with like all these precious metals, earth elements, gemstones. So they carry healing frequency, right? And each and every bowl also is tuned to, let's say, a specific note. And the note also is specifically corresponding to, let's say, a chakra or an energy center, right? Or like a system, a body, like, let's say, the endocrine system in our body. So what happens when I play, right? The frequencies that are being emitted, they basically entrain with your brain waves. So that means like every organ in our body, or our bones and our cells of our body, already are resonating at a specific frequencies. And sometimes when we feel sluggish or like uninspired, unhealthy, right? Listening to sound can really help us reset and reattune our own energy fields. And let's say the organs, the cells, they can be rejuvenated. So, and through that, you move into as the brain waves, starting to sort of like calm you down, you move either into theta or the delta brainwave state. So basically a state we're in, right, when we're deeply resting, when we're sleeping, or a state where we're sort of like, we don't know if we're really here. It's sort of like what we experience in our Reiki meditations. You kind of like are floating out of your body. You're not really here, but you are. You don't know kind of like what's happening. So the sound waves really gets us into that place of the theta and the beta, the theta and the delta brainwave state. And that's why you can deeply rest and restore and also heal, right? Like our body from the inside out. And the way sort of like I specifically bring in the energy of Reiki is, so I'm a Karuna Reiki master. I either chant in my meditations. So I have the chants, sort of like resonating through with the sound of the bowls, or I infuse each and every bowl with a specific symbol that then is being transmitted out into, the class or through virtually. And of course, like I call upon, obviously I work with with the distance symbol. I place the symbols in the room. I place symbols over, people, my students that are in the class. I put the tree of life in the middle of the meditation room, so everything is kind of like really like flowing and moving through us as we're being held in a meditation with sound. Yeah. And then obviously I also use drums, and I use chimes, and gongs. So obviously all these different instruments have a different kind of vibration as well. So it's kind of like a nice little sound journey you're going through and on. And then afterwards, you usually feel very much transported into and like feel so much better.
So are those channeled experiences, or do you have a particular structure that you work with the sound, or routine? That's not quite the word I'm looking for, but process.
So I, in the beginning of my meditations, I always love for all of us to I started with a prayer. And then I guide us through a little bit of breathing in the beginning, just really allowing our body to just like settle in and just like bring us to a place of basically calmness. And then I guide them through a meditation. So let's say I use one of the meditations that's in our books, let's say the Ocean of Love experience, or the Holy Love experience, or the River of Peace. So I either do those meditations, or I also have created my own, but that are specifically, they work with animal Reiki, right? With most of my meditations, actually, I love working with the animal Reiki energy and just like the tree of life, because I think we have such a human experience on this planet. And I think the energy really brings in so much grounding, and we really are connected to our bodies more when I work with those energies. So I kind of like create my own meditations based on that, but I use some of them. I get inspired by what you guys have created in the books, but it's kind of like a little bit of mix of mine and, other of William Rand's or Colleen's meditation scripts. Yeah. And then I guide them obviously out of the meditation. And then I also work a lot with the Kundalini energy. So working, with sort of like the chanting and the mantras of the Kundalini energy to just like kind of get us out of the meditation, just really clearing us, maybe setting an intention after. All of sort of like everything, but like mainly specific to my energy. And at the end, I like to invite everyone I work with the angels a lot, and I have an angel deck. So I usually ask people to pull from a deck that I have in my classes and see what messages they receive after. Yeah. So that's kind of like my process.
I think there's a couple questions that come up with it. You use the word entrainment, which I use a lot, that Reiki energy entrains us to the higher frequencies, higher levels of consciousness. And then you also mentioned chanting the Karuna symbols. So can you give us maybe just some, for those listening, like some deeper experiences of the Karuna symbols and the sound, and maybe some of their qualities that are showing up when you're doing that work? So just a little bit more definition about the energy itself and how you're experiencing that with consciousness. And
that's such an interesting question. So obviously, when, let's say I lead a meditation, right, in a studio, I kind of feel into the energy of the room, right? I also feel into what's going on collectively, right? Meaning like, or what's also happening in with the moon, right? Because there's like so much going on. So I kind of like intuitively feel into it. And I like to sometimes open my circles in terms of like, how do we feel today? Like, what do we need more of? Do we need more of a grounding energy? Do we need more, do we need to be more inspired, right? So I kind of like feel into that. And based on that, I then channel the energy basically as I'm in the meditation. I'm also like, I'm conscious, but I'm unconscious because I'm channeling, right, the energy. And it just sort of like intuitively comes out, right? Like whatever I feel like needs to be received by the collective. I, however, always love to, as I take people on this sound journey and soundscape, it's the same with Reiki, right? We don't want to leave them up there, like floating in the clouds, right? We want to always make sure we're grounding them back into their body, specifically at the end. So when it comes to Karuna, I always love to work with, the one of the symbols. I don't know if I should share it. I don't know if people,
you can say that with Karuna Reiki.
Yeah. So I always, let's say, connect people really deeply to their body, right? Like sonar, so powerful, right? Like just for specifically for people who have a lot of health challenges, right? And I know people usually in my meditation, everyone always needs good health, right? So I always work with sonar. I always work with Kriya at the end to just like wrap it up, right? To just like grounding them back into their body. Also call whatever they manifested, like let's really just ground them physically into it. Let's make sure all of the manifestations, that anything that they want to call in is being manifested in real life. And then I do a lot of Reiki trails because I walk around with my ocean drum, and I do put the tree of life obviously on my feet, and I walk around it, and I place symbols over, like visually, since I'm very visual, I can look at the person and I just like place a symbol over them. I place always a holy fire Reiki symbol, actually 3 holy fire Reiki symbols all over their body. And it's almost like I'm activating them to the energy, but it's like so beneficial, right? And it's like whenever they want to receive it, it's all there. And it's like almost like a channel to the divine. That's how I visually see it. So I open them up to those portals, basically. But again, like since we're visually speaking, I always place a tree of life in the middle of the room. So I feel like the roots of the tree, like, feed everybody who's laying on the mat. And like, I don't know, I just feel like it's a beautiful vortex to just be in. I don't know, does that make sense?
Yeah,
it does.
Very out there, but it's like
not for this podcast.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's interesting because I've been getting. So I did the other day. I was invited to So as I said, I work a lot with Alo Yoga, and they did a press preview in New York to preview their new collection for the fall and winter. And I always get invited to give Reiki sessions, right? So it's kind of like all the editors come in and we have like different people who activate, like there's a massage therapist, there is someone who does ear seeds, and then here I am doing Reiki. So I introduce people to Reiki healing energies, to the Reiki healing energy. And someone walked by me and was like, oh my God, when I walk by you, my mind is tingling. And I was like, what? And this is like the second time now that I heard it, because another friend of mine who's also attuned to Reiki said the same thing to me. And I was like, okay, that's so interesting. And I think I had dinner with someone recently, and all of a sudden I felt like they were very activated and they got sick. And I was like, that's so interesting. So I feel like even for me, as the energy is always moving, right? Now for me, it's even like I embody this energy so much. I don't even need to do a full-on session. People really receive the energy, even let's say by walking by me, by feeling activated. And it's so powerful. It's just so insane to me sometimes how the energy really like vibrates off of you and feeds everyone in our vortex, basically, even if they had a symbol placed over them or not. But it's like, just being in contact or being around someone who is attuned to that energy is so healing for them, no matter what.
Just be Reiki.
Yeah.
It's funny because, I think many practitioners can identify with that. And one of the things that happens to us is that with kind of that same concept is that people just kind of tell you their stuff, and they'll go into this, there's this healing aspect. And I know as practitioners, we are also listeners. And then you just have this energy that's vibrating out to the capacity that people need it. And I know it happens to Colleen and myself all the time. And my husband, at one point we were sitting with somebody and this guy just starts telling us, we were actually at a car dealership, and the salesman just starts telling us his story and all about this. And so much so that he like started to get choked up a little bit. And he's like, I don't know what I'm doing right now. And my husband was like, oh, I see. Like, they start to notice like, oh yeah, people just tell you their stuff. So kind of in that same capacity, they just feel the vibration. And going into that kind of situation, I had activated Reiki because I wanted a support for us and, the whole situation. And so it's like, it's kind of the same idea as what you're talking about, that mind tingling,
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like it's safety, right? We create sort of that container for them to come into that vortex and to feel safe, to let it out, and to also, it's like they're clearing their energy, and we're the channel, so we are able to transmute it and to put, clear it for them.
Yeah, exactly. And just the Reiki energy, healing what needs to be healed, and that release.
Yes,
like you said, we're a channel for that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know.
And not taking on their channeling, but the channeling for the Reiki process.
Yeah. I get that question all the time because I mentor a lot of my students who let's say, have trained, and I've noticed sometimes they think about it too much. You know what I mean? Like they get so much in their own head. And then I get a lot of questions like from people who I give sessions to, like, how do you do it? Like, how can you do, like, let's say 5 sessions back to back? And I was like, I'm a channel. I don't know. I don't take it on. Like, even I've recently been through a little bit of my own, challenges in my life, but I don't give that to my clients that I'm working with, because I'm a clear channel, and I take really good care of my energy. You know what I mean? So I call it energy hygiene, right? We need to make sure we are as clear as we can be. And that's why I think really embodying this energy of Reiki as your daily practice. And by that, it's a lifestyle, right? Like you guys know that. It's like, it's your day to day. You don't have to, I don't know, sit 10 minutes in a meditation. You are embodying it. You give yourself Reiki when you fall asleep. It's like in you, it's around you. So just making it part of your life, I think, is helps you to just be that channel and be that source for others, I think.
I also call that Reiki on the fly because I'm also always thinking about, well, how do I teach the people how to?
Yes.
Like you say,
Yeah.
with students where they're brand new and,
Right.
what exactly symbols do you use, exactly how you do it. And I know that what happens for us as we are more, it is just our lifestyle. It really is just flowing through us all the time.
Right.
If I feel like it's not flowing, I will just immediately think it and drop it in. We
Yeah.
call it Reiki on the fly.
Yes.
And, really just being able to utilize it that way. But I do think of it in terms of when people say the how to. So, like you described, the Reiki trails, for instance, and activating it. And so,
Yeah.
talk a little bit about your how to process, because I love that term, Reiki hygiene. That's a great term.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I have a responsibility to whoever. So energy is sacred to me, right? My own energy is very sacred, and whoever I work with or whoever comes in contact with me, I'm honored to be around their energy, right? So I would never want to take that for granted. And that's why I need to make sure I'm in a place where my energy is clear so I can be of service to my students, to my clients, whoever I come in contact with. So even, let's say, leading a meditation, making sure that when you arrive, let's say, into the studio, that you clear the space, right? You clear yourself, like you clear, let's say, your singing bowls or your instruments that you're working with, and really take like 5 minutes before the class starts to just like set the space up for to be a clear channel, right? To have that sacred space. So I always make sure of that. And of course, sometimes life gets in the way and, you don't have that maybe 5 minutes, but you utilize the distance symbol and send Reiki to that space, right? We have all the tools we need. We don't physically need to be there. We can still utilize, the distance symbol and send and clear the space, from a distance. You can place the symbols in the room even if you're not there, right? So we have so much power with this, let's say, with the symbols and with this work, that sometimes I think we don't think about it, right? Like I said, if students ask you all the time, like, how do I do this and how do I do this? I don't know. I don't think about it. I'm like, okay, I'm running late. I'm just going to use Hoshazen Shonen and it's there. And I'm going to channel, holy fire, and the room is cleared, and when I arrive, it's there for me. So that's kind of like how I do it. And like I said, I make sure my energy is very, really clear, and I give myself a lot of Reiki, obviously, in the morning and the night. I listen to my meditations. I just embody the work, and I think people really feel that as well. Like I had a lot of, like, it's interesting, like last week, a lot of people came to me. They had really horrible Reiki experiences. They've been in contact with not the best Reiki practitioners. And how I say it is like, even if your experience wasn't great, you still receive the benefits. There's not such a thing as bad Reiki. It's always good. It's like, if the person is not clear with their energy, that's what you're picking up. So I think that's why, to me, coming from that place of like, energy is sacred, and how can I come back and make sure my body is my temple? How can I make sure that's clear for me in order for me to be of service to others.
And honoring it.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
also when we as practitioners, as healers and, teachers, when we are having a bad day, honor that, and just pause. There's, we don't have to do anything that's not in alignment for our highest good. And just explaining that to people, I think, is just being vulnerable and sharing that, I think is really important. And I can speak to that. Like I took 3 months off recently because I ended my partnership that I was in, and my nervous system was just so shot, and I was not able to hold space for others. I just needed to give that energy back to myself, and I just took a pause, and there's nothing wrong with that. And
Gives
now I
others-
feel like, yeah,
As you share that, it gives others permission to do the same, because it's like you
exactly.
heal yourself, you heal the world.
Yes.
It's that ripple effect.
Yeah. And I'm so happy I did it, because now I feel like I know my energy is coming back. I'm so much more connected to myself, but I needed that pause to heal myself and heal my wounds and heal my heart, to just come back with, really feeling like connected to myself again. So I think that's important, that we, even though this is, let's say, if some of us do this for a living, we are human, and we need to also honor that, we sometimes need to pause and to honor ourselves as healers.
Self-care.
Yes, exactly.
I think that's a big misunderstanding I had originally with Reiki. I think I thought that once I reached a certain level of experience or a certain level of spiritual growth and development, that meant that I would always be okay. That my mind and my emotions and everything would just be at this level place. And now what I realize is that what that means is that I am okay with being human, and that I live in this human experience right now. And that has the lower and the higher frequencies. And by lower, I don't mean, like a bad lower energy, but those times that, you just really need to be or are in the feelings and the emotions and the mental state that we can be in, and allowing that to be normal and okay. Right. And so I know exactly what you mean by that, because there have been different times that, you just need to take that time to kind of reset, come back, rejuvenate, use the Reiki energy. And I know for myself, when I've been in some of those periods, it's maybe not even that easy to use the Reiki energy to do that. I have to kind of rely on the overall, okay, Reiki, just work right now. I need you to come in and do your stuff, because even sometimes in those periods, we don't even have a lot of bandwidth. Or I know times I felt like, I remember, I think it was one time even last summer, and I thought, I'm just at capacity. Like I'm just at capacity. And I didn't even know what I meant by that. And as soon as I said that to myself, then I could actually kind of now use the Reiki energy. Like, well, what do I mean by that? To even ask myself, but then let myself be okay with that feeling. And then what I need to do to take care of myself with that feeling.
Exactly.
And that was a surprise to me, because I think I thought that when I reached a spiritual growth or enlightenment, quote unquote, it's like, okay, well, I'm not enlightened yet, if that's what that means. So that I wouldn't have those periods of self-doubt or, self-criticism, or feeling tired, or
Anger.
at capacity, all of those things.
Even anger or
Anger.
trigger or wounds, all of
Right.
those kinds of things too.
Yeah. I mean, healing never ends, right? Like even for us, like I feel like every day I uncover certain things within myself that I'm like, oh, we need to sit with this and we need to bring the energy there and we need to release it and we need to move through it. And same thing, anger, self-doubt, like all of the things, we're human. It's always normal for us to experience that. But that's why I'm so grateful that I have this capacity or this energy to work with, and it's allowing me to come back to myself in a way where it's gentle and it's kind. And that's what I love about the Reiki energy, because it's just so kind and it's so gentle, and it just it doesn't bring something up if you're not able to handle it. And that's how I see it.
It's loving, and it helps you move through it in a more conscious way, because you're okay. Here I am. I'm angry or wounded, and whatever emotion that is, or I'm tired, or here I am, but I'm angry. Okay, so how do I move through that? What does the energy have to tell me? What does my higher self have to tell me? What does my human self have to tell me? What do I need to heal within myself? And what do I need to also reveal or empower within myself? And those higher frequencies of compassion and love and all of those things, that it's not bypassing the emotion of anger.
Right.
It's viewing it from a more compassionate place for self and for others. And Reiki energy really helps us to look at it from that perspective, because looking at it from a more compassionate space, once you're through the initial, sitting in that initial phase of it, because that's true too. Once we're through that initial phase looking at it from a place of compassion for ourselves and for others, or just releasing it, letting it go, putting it behind you, and moving into a kind of a higher, or moving into, like you said, coming back to yourself.
Yeah. You know what I like to call it? I like to call it alchemizing it.
Yeah.
Like
exactly.
really allowing it to just alchemize within your frequency and this new sensation, this new feel, because you have shifted from an old, let's say, pattern of feeling, what you associated around it. You have changed that. You have changed that frequency, and now it's a different frequency. So how do it needs to still entrain and alchemize, and you need to embody it. So that's kind of like what I've lately been experiencing, of that level of allowing it to settle.
Yeah. And I love that. And I think that is kind of a part of the difference with moving through it with Reiki energy or spiritual tool, however you look at it, is that before I wouldn't have been able to have that approach to it.
Oh, no,
no. And
before I went out into a bar and drank myself to.
Exactly. Or just continuing to hold on to it,
Exactly.
Indefinite amount of time. It doesn't mean that you don't hold on to it for a period of time, but hold on to it for an indefinite amount of time. And like you said,
that was more of the real human experience.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the understanding of compassion too. So take anger or frustration, or some of those that, we try to just not experience or feel, that sometimes it has information for us. Sometimes it is actually, and the compassion comes in to clarify what is actually happening in this situation, and the alchemy that you can look at it from a more witnessing viewpoint, from both the higher levels of consciousness of that viewpoint, and also then if it takes you into the lower lower vision, frequencies of it, and then to really assess it. Is
Right.
this, first of all, for me, a lot of times it's like, is this even real?
Oh my God.
And right, when we get into those stories,
Oh my God. I know.
and did I just make this up? And is this story spinning around in my head? And am I going to even do anything with it? But I think it takes me, so let's take even the experience that I said last year when I remember this one day. I can even picture it now, thinking I'm just at capacity. Like, that's it. And then a few minutes later, I was able to think, well, am I really? Is that real? Am I truly at capacity? And thought, well, no, capacity is probably way bigger than what this is now. So now what do I do? So now, why am I feeling this way? Or maybe not even why, but just giving myself the time to be okay with the fact that I do feel that way. And now what? What are my solutions? What are my resources? And sometimes for me, that's even like, I'm just going to go watch TV. Something as simple as, like, I'm just done. I need to just tune out, do nothing.
Right.
Whatever.
Well, I also think, like, since we are with the Reiki energy, we're able to really tap into a lot of higher levels of consciousness. So we already have expanded in that higher level of conscious so much that it takes our physical body so much more time to catch up. So I think that's that obviously we have a human experience, but I think that's where it's almost like our energy is vibrating so much higher, and the physical body can't even catch up with it. So I think that's like the high and the low, and it's like, whoa, what just happened? And it's like, you go into these, like, I can't do anything right now. I just need to be. I don't know what happened, and it's like it's catching up to that higher realm. I don't know.
Well, I think that's exactly that's exactly what I was feeling like. I'm at capacity and my physical body had to catch up. And I see that in my sessions all the time with people, in spiritual expansion, that it's almost like a muscle growth. So I liken it to a person who's working out and their physical muscles have to expand to hold the strength that they're holding. And they need to rest in between. And sometimes you're going to reach these points of like, okay, I'm good right where I'm at. And I also think that sometimes part of it is to assess, do we want to go higher? Because once you go up into those higher frequencies, there's really no going back. You have your moments of dipping in and out. But also, I know for me, we were talking earlier about times of resistance before we were recording, and times of resistance. And I did this whole, I think it was an article, I think it was even titled Reiki Heals Resistance. And recognizing that sometimes the resistance or the questioning, maybe not even resistance, but sometimes the questioning, or sometimes that, like, I just need to take some time, is also an opportunity to decide, do I want to keep growing spiritually? Do I want to keep expanding? Am I at a place where this is right where I want to be for a while? And maybe later I'll go further with it, and maybe not. So I think there's also that. It's also an opportunity for self-assessment.
True. Yeah. Very profound. I love that. It's true.
Nicole, do you want to? I'd love to hear, if it's possible. I don't know if we really planned on this, but you held up two bowls. I'd love to hear just like, if you could just play one quickly, kind of give us the qualities, like the notes that it's playing, what the bowl is, and then maybe do like one or like maybe two of them so we could hear the differences.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I
know
only
you have to fix your sound and stuff.
Yeah, we'll do it. I only have two out. So like I said, I
Okay.
have this, so this is a 9-inch A -45, which probably doesn't mean anything to any of you, but I explain. So
Just to sound.
it's an A note, and this is the Morganite Platinum Alchemy. So, and it's with air infused. So I don't know, you see that the bowl has like some bubbles. So obviously the element of air uplifts us, right? It connects us really to the heart. It also opens up our heart space. And let me play it so you can experience it. And this one is a D note, and it's an 8-inch. So the bigger the bowl, the lower the note is. So it's more grounding. So that's why the Morganite bowl is really, really grounding. And this one is a little bit, it's right in between. And a kyanite, like I said, it's a natural pain reliever. So it takes any pain physically away from your body. Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course.
Really
And yeah, usually when at least when I have all my bowls out, they obviously also harmonize with one another, right? So and so when we're talking about also frequency and what they're tuned mainly to 428 hertz. So very, grounding, great for our heart space, really connecting us to that, to really the grounding energy. And then some of my other bowls are tuned to 528, which that's more for your heart, connecting to love, higher levels of frequency and whatnot. But at least for me, the set I have curated specifically is very much so grounding us back into our physical body. My bowls mainly work with the heart chakra, so really like connecting us deep to our heart, to our authentic self, clearing out anything that's like weighing on us. Some of my bowls are balancing masculine, feminine energy, yin and yang, really physically moving the pain out, but then yet also still connecting you to higher levels of consciousness. I have a Saint Germain bowl, so really connecting you to the Saint Germain energy, really channeling, pure divine love, connecting you to higher levels of consciousness, so you're able to really call on these higher frequencies and really alchemize them back into your body. Yeah.
You gotta turn your sound, the original sound back on. Yeah, no, it's
Sorry.
fine. That's
There you
okay.
go.
Yeah. Really cool. I love
Yeah.
that low one was so much lower than I was expecting.
Yeah. I know it's I usually start out playing my sound baths with this bowl because it's very just like gets you right in there, gets you really, really grounded really fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe
Yeah.
turn your gain back up just a little bit.
Better?
One more time.
Better?
Yeah, a little bit better.
So can
That's
you explain about the 428 and 528 hertz?
Yeah. So they're just like basically when you have sets of sound bowls, um there's no should, right? But you want to make sure that most of your set resonates to that same hertz. So sometimes then they're a little bit off, right? So it's like you're guiding people through, yes, grounding, heart opening, but usually we should have like there's no should. You can mix and match, right? Because it's also like the energy that you bring to the table. But basically, like, yeah, so different hertzes work with different healing techniques, right? So obviously, I don't know if you heard of the solfeggio frequencies. They work a lot with like 528, 428 hertz. And basically, some of those hertz like help with releasing fear, right? Rejuvenating. Some of them are like 528 is really connected to love and miracles, right? 639 hertz is like harmonizing your body. So you can, you can work with that. I usually don't work with the hertz. It's like more of a technical thing when you get into sound healing and this really the technicalities behind the sound and the notes. But just so there is this thing too where if it's like 428 is more grounding, 528 528 is more like connecting to love and miracles.
The awareness that the wavelengths can do different things for the wavelengths in your body.
Yeah.
And
Right.
it sounds like your practice is kind of on the intuitive, spiritual side.
Yes.
Obviously, it uses that as
Totally.
well, but some people's practices are very much on
Right.
the
On
technical
that,
side of
yes.
things. Yeah.
And you can get very technical also with like the notes, right? Like obviously if you have a scale, you want to make sure you have notes that work well with each other. So there's a lot that you can go into. But again, for me, I'm very intuitive, and I like to say it's the energy you bring to the table, even with all the, the technicalities that are involved in sound healing. Because you're basically transporting that energy outward into your audience. So yeah, but of course, you want to make sure always that your set sounds harmonizing, and not off. Yeah.
So do you also work with tuning forks? Then you also said you do vocal chanting.
Chanting. Yeah. So the only chanting I really do is in my sound meditations, and I chant the Karuna symbols. That's kind of like what I do. I don't specifically work with tuning forks, just because I usually teach like bigger groups. Like if it's a one-on-one session, then yes, I would use a tuning fork. And it's the same way, right? You put a tuning fork on certain, let's say meridian points or, chakra energy centers. And then basically that center will start vibrating on, it will alchemize and balance and harmonize to that specific tuning fork. I love to work with drums. Like I have an ocean drum, which is amazing. And drumming obviously is used in a lot of shamanic practices, right? It brings us back to our sort of like roots, I should say. And I love the gong. The gong is also transports us into, oh my God, so many different portals, at least for me. It's very powerful. And usually when you use the gongs, you go into the alpha and the theta brainwave state. So again, like very relaxation, a state of relaxation where you can channel creativity, and really just be at bliss. Yeah.
Is the alpha, theta, or theta, delta, is that based on the frequency? Is that based kind of on the instruments, like what frequencies they produce, or both?
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
A
Okay.
little bit of both. Yeah.
Sense.
Yeah. I mean, I necessarily, it would be a great study to do.
Yeah. Right.
I know, like, okay, now we're moving into the theta and the delta. Like, I wonder, I would love to do that actually, to just like, see where we're really going, like to do a sleep study or something if someone listens to a meditation. But I would say no matter what, you've received the benefits
Yeah.
instantly.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I also love to work with chimes. I feel like chimes are very fairy-like and, transport you to different portals. I don't know. So I like to have like a little bit of both, like in the meditations. And when you let's say if you listen to one of the Alo yoga meditations, you hear some of the chants, you hear the chanting, you hear all the different instruments that I use. You also see it because we recorded it. So you can see me using these different instruments in the meditation. So it's beautiful. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, so what are you envisioning in the future? Where are you going? Where's business going? Do you see Reiki going a certain way? Like, what is that like?
Well, I lined up a great partnership with Soul House here in New York, but also Soul House is kind of like globally. So I'm actually one of their residences in terms of if you want to receive Reiki, you can come to me at Soul House, which is, again, it really speaks to the vision that I have of making it more accessible, right? And being in places where it, like, being connected with certain, let's say, companies or brands that have that bigger audience. So I'm really excited for that. And I love teaching Reiki. I love teaching sound. I love mentoring people and wanting to make sure that people feel comfortable with this work, but for themselves, really empowering their authentic self. Because I think we all have our unique gifts. And yes, we have expanders in our lives that really show you what's possible and to really be successful in what you do. But I think it's important for all of us to come back to our authentic self and do what's in alignment with who we are. So yeah, what I see for myself is really making this work more accessible, more mainstream. Like, remember when yoga just first started and no one knew about yoga? Like, I want to make Reiki and also sound that next thing, so we can really benefit all of it from it. And it is so needed. I know it is. We all know it is. And I don't know. I swear by it. It truly changed my life. And I feel like everyone who I come in contact with and receives it and is open to it feels the same way. So that's kind of like the vision that I have of really making it, accessible to anybody. Yeah.
When I was first starting in my Reiki practice years ago, I did a Reiki journey, and that's what came through for my purpose in doing the work. Like, why am I doing this, and what's the foundation of it? And I was so surprised to hear that my personal journey with it would be to help Reiki become so mainstream
Yeah.
that children would grow up with it as part of their health care, and also that they could grow up and that it would support them financially if they wanted to become a Reiki practitioner and a Reiki teacher, so that it was something they could support their family with, that people could consider it an option as a professional.
Yeah, really creating a thriving Reiki business. That's how when I teach my students, I have a whole business section on like how to create a thriving Reiki practice in terms of like, how do you really streamline it? How do you build up for it too? Like energetically, how do you make sure your body is strong enough so you can, see 8 clients a day if you want to, right? Because if we want to think ahead of making this a business, and if you want to sustain yourself, and if you want to make 10 figures or 100,000 figures a year, like, yeah, how do you energetically prepare for that? Because you are you, and you are the channel. However, energetically, you need to be ready for that, to hold that big frequency that's coming in and that expansion, So it's not just like, yes, here is your gift, but go out there, but it's like really being of service in terms of creating a thriving business out of it and making sure you are taken care of first and foremost. Yeah.
Well, and also the business practices that actually go with that.
Yes.
In today's world, in the 21st century business practices.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I know this is true for me, like money blocks come up, right? Like all the time. And what I'm actually moving through right now is like, I'm so comfortable in let's say in the 5D and the higher levels of consciousness, right? I still have a hard time connecting. For me, money is only created in the 3D, right? Which is true, like in this human experience. But how do we create it in the 5D, and how do you create that trust? Where is that bridge, right? So I'm kind of like moving through that right now, because I have the vision. I already know it. However, there's like just a little gap that I need to bridge right now to make it more cohesive.
Yeah.
To bring it all together, let's put it this way.
Yeah.
But it comes up. It's totally normal for all of it to come up, for all of us to come, have those fears, those doubts, the resistance, the blocks,
Questions. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I would say it's very common. And in teaching with students, where Robyn and I were just talking about that there's somehow a belief that, you should only offer Reiki for free and there wouldn't be any charge for it. And there's an energetic misunderstanding around that, and also a historic misunderstanding around it, because Usui Sensei, the founder of the lineage we're working with, always charged money, except when he offered it for free, which even if you have a Reiki business that you are charging for your services, there's still a lot of free Reiki that you do, so it's like you said, it's just a lifestyle. But really looking at the history of it, Usui Sensei actually started it that way as a foundation, that was part of his intention to help it grow. And I remember again years ago, William Rand and I talking, and he said, as I was working through my own issues around it and, challenges and beliefs around it. And he said, well, part of it is that we really have to create business with it that will help it become mainstream. Otherwise, it will just be that kind of background stuff that only a few people do.
Right.
And so that has really helped me. And then the understanding for myself, because I had to sell my other business that was very successful in order to practice Reiki full time, that I couldn't do as much Reiki as I wanted to do, because I do have to financially support myself.
Right.
And I unless I get that $1 billion lottery that's going on Powerball, it's happening today. And then I think, well, I would still use it to promote Reiki.
Of course. I know.
That's still where it would go.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't know. For me, it's an energy exchange, it's like it needs to be balanced. It needs to be in alignment, right? It's interesting. Like sometimes, students ask me how much should I charge for my sessions, right? And it's like, it's an energy exchange. What do you feel comfortable with, right? And like also, when you're at a point where you need to maybe charge more, right? So it's kind of like, it's the same thing. Like I know Reiki practitioners that charge $500 an hour, and it's like, great. That's their energy exchange for them to, for them to do this. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's like, it's just like what is in their vibration, what is in alignment with them. You know what I mean? So it's an interesting journey to specifically around money and doing the work that we do. And just, utilizing our gifts and not feeling guilty around it too.
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
especially you live in New York. That's different
Right.
than living in,
You still have to,
rural
yeah.
area.
Well, it's funny when I travel, I go to Germany a lot, right? And I obviously offer this work in Germany as well. I cannot charge the same prices that I charge in New York for my sessions.
Yeah.
No one, and there's also a cultural thing, right? So it's not like even financially, it's also a cultural thing. No one would pay what I charge here, So it's very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Nicole, why don't you tell us what you have coming up, how people can reach you, all of those kinds of things.
Yes.
So let us know how we can get a hold of you and
of course
what you got going.
So yeah, I mean, if you want to meditate with me, join me on Alo Moves, obviously. I also have my own Reiki and sound healing membership. So, I do monthly Reiki healing circles, Reiki meditation, sound baths. Then you can find me at Soho House in New York, specifically starting in September, but also globally soon. So just keep up to date with check out my Instagram and see what I'm up to. And then I'm also going to do a Reiki and a sound healing training soon, meaning specifically for, let's say, sound healers who want to utilize the Reiki healing energy and infusing it into their practice with sound. So that's something I have coming up in the fall. Yeah.
Awesome. And your website is NicoleRutsch.com. That's Nicole is spelled how it's spelled, and then Rutsch is RUTSCH. Instagram is Nicole_Rutsch. What emails hello@NicoleRutsch.com. And then if they get onto the Alo Yoga app or Alo Moves app, are they just going to search for your name?
Exactly.
Okay.
Just search for my name or type in Reiki, and then you'll see you'll see my face. And then we can start meditating together.
Well, and I want to spell Alo Moves for people because I think it may be hard to hear in this. So it's ALO, and then Moves is MOVES, as we would expect it to be. But I know it might be hard to hear over the over audio. Alo Moves.
Over the radio.
Over the radio.
There you go.
The teleconference call.
Yeah.
That's an inside joke, Nicole, because the podcast, it used to be called Reiki Chat, and Robyn and Sean, her husband, got me going with the podcast, but I just couldn't grasp what it was. So I always called it a teleconference call, a global teleconference call. So.
Yes.
To be fair, a lot of people probably felt more comfortable with that term than not knowing what a podcast was. So
took me 2 years of doing a podcast before I understood what a podcast was.
This is in the early days of podcasting.
I'm definitely dating myself here, but
no, it was in the early days of podcasting. People didn't know what they were yet.
Exactly. People didn't know. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy to think?
I know.
Like people didn't know what podcasting was, and that wasn't that long ago. to really
That's so
grasp the
true.
concept of what a podcast is. And now it's, there's very few people probably that don't know what it means at this point.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's what I meant by 21st century business practices, because
Right.
we really are in that new phase of what does that even mean, and keeping up with it all.
And then
Right.
AI
And
enters the chat.
right. All these.
Sorry, Nicole, go ahead.
No, I mean, I mean, Usui Sensei said that with how, the world is changing, Reiki is changing too, right? So we are evolving with the energy and with technology, and we're integrating it, we're alchemizing it. Yes, there's AI, but how do we, what do we do with it is like the bigger question, right? It's like, yes, we have this great tool, but how do we still come back and finding balance with it all?
Exactly.
Use
Yeah.
Reiki,
Yeah.
because
Connection to the
it does help. I mean, you think about when, Reiki went online, and finding out, in fact, that
Yeah.
distance Reiki
Oh my God.
exists, and working with it in this kind of a format is
Yeah.
equally as powerful as in person.
Right. I mean, that was like one of that is a message I keep hearing from people, and that's why I also created this Alo Move series, because there's so many misconceptions around Reiki, that it can only be received like physically in person. No one knew it can be received, virtually, that we're using a distance symbol, that we're channeling symbols. And I actually go into great depth and explain that even in the intro video. But like even the meditations I have created, right? I channel the symbols, and the symbols are still active. So I can still charge the meditations with the energy, So that's why it's just so beneficial and powerful for us to utilize this and to make it more accessible for everybody, and to, sort of clear away these misconceptions or these shoulds, or how it should look like, right? Because with how we are changing, the energy changes as well. And I think that was like one of my biggest takeaways from any of my Reiki trainings, understanding that concept of, um, as we are growing and evolving, the energy within us also does, and the energy around us. So that's why Reiki is always beneficial and great, and, soothing to our soul and to our mind and our body.
Well, and again, going back to Usui, that's actually what he said
Right.
was the most important thing for a Reiki practitioner to
Exactly.
do is continually grow their ability to channel the quality and quantity of Reiki.
Right.
Yeah, it has always meant to do that, and really even going back into the history that Mrs. Takata taught Reiki over the phone, and we actually have that in her own letters, in the history of Reiki with her letters. So it's been doing it that way, and I think for myself, really looking at us at the infancy of this level of global communication, that it's so amazing that the Reiki energy came in at this time to elevate us. And I see it as when we are able to ask the questions, it's able to answer us, and then it's up to us to respond.
Right.
And then it again responds, and we respond. It's that entrainment again that you're
Right.
talking about.
Exactly. And
Mhm.
I think it's also part of, um, yeah, just going, like living in this modern day world, right? Like
Yeah.
not getting so caught up on, yes, obviously honoring the traditions, right? And honoring what became came before us, but yet still going also with the time. And, I think that that's just such a beautiful thing, because we need to also evolve, and we need to be open to receive change, because we know this, like change is hard, change is resistance, right? But when we can actually go with the flow and when we allow change to happen, it leads us somewhere where we probably didn't, somewhere where we had no awareness of, So I think it's expansion in a way, right? And it's the unknown. So how do we trust that on the unknown, really? How do we feel more comfortable with that?
Probably by the results.
Yes.
To me, that's where it always comes down to is, you can have a theory about it, and then you have to see, does that actually work? And what are the results?
Right.
And so again, going back to the history, Usui was the first one to evolve his Reiki practice because there were Reiki practitioners prior to him. And then he evolved it by adding the attunements. And then Hayashi evolved it by adding more of the medical practice. And, so on as Mrs. Takata evolved it to match a Western world. And with the Usui master symbol, that she's the one who evolved that. So it has always evolved with us, or helped us evolve with it, might be more accurate. But I think it's meant to do that for us and to see the possibilities. I mean, I just look at this and again see the results really show that not only does it work, and the idea does, does this work? It profoundly works.
Yeah, 100%. And also, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I also think integrating, and I think I said this before to both of you, adding animal Reiki to it. Oh my goodness. For me, that really brought everything together. It really, and bringing that energy even into, like I said, specifically into the meditations for me has really, really helped my clients and my students so much to just feel so much more connected to themselves. It's so powerful. And yes, of course, it's for the animals. However, it's also for us. And it was such a profound moment in my journey as a student to just really see it all coming together. And it was, it's incredible.
Yeah. Should it, we've talked about should it be called Earth Reiki, or, because it just is
Nature Reiki.
Nature Reiki, it's so all encompassing.
No, I love animal Reiki.
I mean, exactly. It's meant to be what it is. It is for the animals. Yeah.
And
but that portrayal of the all encompassing idea of what is
what it is. But we live on this planet called Mother Earth, and we need to be in harmony with the animals and with nature. So that's what it is. It's really like connecting us to our roots, to our ancestors. So that's why, to me, it's so profound. It really shifted a lot doing my animal Reiki training. And I feel like it should actually be taught after 1 and 2, after level Reiki 1 and 2, to just sort of everyone should really have it.
Well, and I think, again, just to explain for anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, is when we wrote the Animal Reiki course, Robyn and myself, Sue Strong, and Pamela Ellen LeBlanc, we actually thought we were writing a manual of Reiki techniques using our existing Reiki energy, because, of course, you can use your existing Reiki energy. Anyone and everyone can do that. And it was well into almost like the completion of the course when Robyn and I were talking to William one day, and the way he said what he said, we realized, oh, this is a specific energy that the animals are bringing to us, the earth is bringing to us to help us integrate with ourselves as part of the circle of life, that we live here, we're human beings, we're meant to be on the earth and we belong here. And that tree of life symbol and tree of life Reiki energy was, we truly didn't know until all of the sudden it was like, oh, it's its own energy. And what is the energy? What is it? And then
Right.
why is it tree of life? Because once it came through, and we did months and months of Reiki journeys and working with the animals and asking, together and then individually, what is this? And then it ended up to be the tree of life. And we thought, why is it the tree of life? And then what does the symbol look like? And so then again, going back to that awareness of the results, we
Right.
have seen again profound changes in our own lives, and then the
Yeah.
people with the energy, and of course how receptive the animals are to it.
Yeah. Oh my God. The animals are so receptive. It's so powerful. I mean, I can only testify from my dog, Eddie. He never, the regular Reiki, human Reiki was too much for him. He never wanted to be next to me. He always moved around. If I bring in the animals, the divine animal kingdom, tree of life, he's all over me. So different.
Right.
Loves it. Loves it. He's right next to me right now. He literally is next to me.
Well, and one of the awarenesses that it has really brought in, since you live in New York City, is how the cities also are a part of the natural world. And
Yeah.
the city has its own rhythm and its own life force and energy that we can connect in with and entrain with also.
Yeah. Totally. Totally.
Mhm.
I know. Although for me, it's always about balance, right? I like need my nature. I need to be in
Yes.
nature. And it's interesting. I think living in LA for a year and a half to 2 years really helped me connect with nature in a different way. And
Mhm.
now, like being back in New York, I'm really craving the balance. And that is just for my own journey, but it's like how do I find balance within even living in the city? Can I drive to the beach like being in New York? Yes, I can. Like, and it's also, I see a shift in Eddie. Like, he's like so happy at the beach. When we're in the forest hiking, he's so focused. He's completely like, it clears him too. So it's so powerful um to witness it and to be aware of that and to have that awareness.
I have to say, I was surprised when I went to New York City and, of course, to northern New York,
Hmm.
at the different retreats that we've done,
Oh
that
yeah.
how much you can actually get to
Oh
nature
yeah.
living in New York City.
Yeah.
But it's not that
Totally.
far away.
No, it's 20-30 minutes away,
Yeah,
if
the
depending on
forest,
where you are.
it's
Right there.
I just expected it to be sprawling, forever, and that,
Right.
getting to nature would be very difficult, but it's actually very close by.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And
It's
the dandelions are popping up because they're saying, "Remember the dandelion growing in the crack of the sidewalk.
right.
It's
Yeah,
also nature." And
exactly.
they do that in the city, and they pop up, and you think, "How did it grow there?" So
They're
they're
clearing the
whispering
soil.
in my ear, "Be sure you mention us."
Oh, I love them so much. Great. I mean, I studied herbalism. We didn't even get to talk about that. It's okay,
Oh,
but
that's right.
yeah, but they're detoxifying to our system and to nature. So they're clearing the earth. So that's their spiritual, meaning. So very, yeah, love them. Love them.
I always think of their little yellow faces still
Oh,
shining upward in the just the crack of the sidewalk.
yeah.
They're
Like
like, "Hello,
poking out. I'm here. Just
I'm
one.
still here."
Yeah. Yeah. So Good.
Well, Nicole, gosh, thank you so much. We'll have to have you
Thank
back to
you.
talk about the
I
herbalism.
know I could just go on and on and on about
I
it.
know.
And
We could, couldn't we?
I know. We'll do another one soon
So
and see
much
where
to
we
talk
are.
about.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, thank you everybody for listening, and thank you to the both of you for having me. It's been such an honor, and I'm so grateful to be here with you and to share,
Mm.
all the magic of Reiki and sound. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. You can get a hold of Nicole Rutsch at NicoleRutsch.com. And then you can get a hold of Colleen and I at ReikiLifestyle.com. And so I think that is all. Thank you all for listening, and we will see or talk to you next time.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.